The day the aliens came was just like any other Tuesday for Jack Miller. He was working late at NASA, trying to fix a problem with a satellite design that everyone else had given up on. His desk was a mess of coffee cups, circuit boards, and sticky notes. Jack wasn't supposed to be messing with the design anymore. His boss had told him to move on to other projects. But Jack never was good at following orders, especially when he knew he could solve a problem. That's when all the screens in the lab suddenly switched to an emergency broadcast. A large silver ship had appeared near the moon. It wasn't from Earth. All personnel report to the main conference room immediately. The announcement blared through the speakers. Jack sighed and put down his tools. Whatever this was, it probably meant more paperwork. In the conference room, the NASA director looked pale. "We've made contact with an alien species. They call themselves the Narvani, and they want to meet with representatives from Earth." The room erupted in chaos. Jack sat quietly, his mind already racing with questions about the aliens' technology. 3 days later, Jack was surprised to find himself on a list of people chosen to meet the aliens. He wasn't a diplomat or a politician. He was just an engineer, known for solving impossible problems and occasionally breaking equipment in the process. "Miller, you're only going because we need someone who understands our tech," explained Director Harris. "But listen carefully. These aliens are very formal and cautious. Follow all protocols. Don't speak unless spoken to. And whatever you do, don't touch anything without permission." Jack nodded seriously, but his fingers were already tapping with excitement. The human delegation took off from Kennedy Space Center in a special shuttle. Alongside Jack were 5 diplomats, 3 scientists, and 2 military officers. The most experienced diplomat, Susan Wright, gave them all final instructions as they approached the massive alien ship. "Remember, we represent all of humanity now. One wrong move could affect our species' future." The alien ship was enormous, at least 3 times the size of anything humans had ever built. It gleamed silver and blue under the sun's light. As their shuttle approached, a section of the larger ship opened smoothly, revealing a docking bay. Jack pressed his face against the window, trying to understand how the door had opened without any visible hinges or seams. The shuttle pilot carefully guided them inside. When the docking was complete and the air pressure equalized, the shuttle door opened. The aliens were waiting. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The Narvani stood on 4 slender legs with 2 pairs of arms extending from their torsos. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer slightly. Large, almond-shaped eyes dominated their faces with small slits for noses and mouths. They wore what looked like flowing robes embedded with tiny lights. The tallest alien stepped forward. "Welcome to the Celestial Voyager. I am Ambassador Zelix of the Narvani Diplomatic Corps. We come in peace from the Galactic Confederation." Susan Wright stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We are honored to meet you. I am Susan Wright, lead diplomat for Earth." After introductions, Ambassador Zelix led them through corridors that seemed to glow from within. Jack noticed there were no visible light fixtures, no obvious control panels, and no buttons or switches. Everything seemed to respond to the aliens' presence automatically. "Your quarters have been prepared according to our understanding of human biology," Ambassador Zelix explained. "We will begin formal discussions tomorrow. Until then, please remain in the designated areas." The ambassador paused, looking directly at the humans. "For your safety and ours, please don't touch anything without permission. Some of our systems are sensitive to unfamiliar biological signatures." Everyone nodded in agreement. Jack nodded, too, but his eyes were already darting everywhere, trying to understand how everything worked. Later that night, while the other humans slept, Jack lay awake in his quarters. The room was comfortable but strange, with curved walls and furniture that seemed to grow from the floor. He couldn't stop thinking about the ship's technology. "Just a quick look around," he whispered to himself as he slipped out of bed. "I won't touch anything." But Jack Miller never was good at keeping promises, especially to himself. Jack moved quietly through the corridors of the alien ship. The floors seemed to glow slightly under his feet, responding to his weight. He kept his hands close to his body, trying to remember his promise not to touch anything. but everywhere he looked there was something new and fascinating. The corridor curved, gently, leading Jack deeper into the ship. He guessed he was heading toward the engine room or whatever powered this massive vessel. The walls here had thin lines of blue light running through them like veins. After walking for about 10 minutes, Jack came to a door that was different from the others. Instead of the smooth surface of the living quarters, this one had symbols etched into it. Jack leaned closer, careful not to touch. Suddenly, the door slid open. Jack jumped back, but there was no one there. The door had opened on its own, perhaps sensing his presence. He hesitated, then stepped through. The room beyond was clearly some kind of engineering section. Large cylindrical tanks filled with shimmering liquid stood in the center. Around the edges were what looked like control panels, though they had no buttons or screens that Jack recognized. "This is amazing," Jack whispered to himself. He walked slowly around the room, studying everything. His fingers itched to touch the equipment to figure out how it all worked. Near one of the tanks, Jack noticed a panel with a pulsing light. The light changed colors slowly, from blue to green to yellow. Jack crouched down to look more closely. The panel seemed to be monitoring something in the tank, but one section of the display was flickering. "That's not right," Jack said. His engineer's instinct told him something was wrong with the system. He looked more carefully and realized that one of the crystals in the panel was slightly out of alignment. Jack bit his lip. He wasn't supposed to touch anything, but if something was wrong with the ship's systems, shouldn't he try to help? After a moment of debate, Jack reached out and gently pushed the crystal back into proper alignment. As soon as his fingers touched it, the crystal glowed brightly. Jack felt a slight tingling sensation in his hand. The flickering on the panel stopped immediately. The pulsing light stabilized to a steady blue glow. Then, to Jack's surprise, all the lights in the room brightened. The liquid in the tanks began circulating more quickly. What did I just do? Jack wondered out loud. A sound behind him made Jack spin around. Standing in the doorway was one of the Narvani. This one was shorter than Ambassador Zelix, with markings on its robes that looked like mathematical equations. "Human, you were instructed not to touch anything," the alien said. Its voice was calm but firm. Jack raised his hands. "I'm sorry, I was just exploring and noticed something was wrong with this panel. The crystal was misaligned." The Narvani moved into the room and examined the panel. "This system has been functioning at reduced efficiency for several cycles. We were planning a careful recalibration procedure." The alien looked at Jack. "You fixed it with one touch." "It was pretty obvious," Jack said with a shrug. "The crystal wasn't seated properly. I just pushed it back into place." The Narvani's large eyes blinked slowly. "Most species would avoid touching unknown technology. It could have been dangerous." Jack nodded. "Yeah, I know. But sometimes you have to take a chance to solve a problem." "I am Zarkalak's chief engineer," the alien said. "What you did was against our protocols, but it was also effective." Before Jack could respond, the door opened again and Susan Wright rushed in, followed by two more Narvani. "Jack Miller, we've been looking everywhere for you." Susan's face was red with anger. Ambassador Zelix was clear about the rules. Ambassador Zelix stepped forward. "Explain your presence in our engineering section, Human Miller." Jack explained about his late-night exploration and the misaligned crystal. He expected to be sent home immediately. Instead, Chief Engineer Zarkalak spoke up. "The humans' actions, while against protocol, have improved our engine efficiency by 12%. Ambassador Zelix seemed surprised. "Is this correct, Engineer?" "Yes. His intuitive understanding of our technology is unexpected." The ambassador turned to Jack. "Human Miller, your actions were reckless. However, Engineer Zarkalax has requested your input on several technical matters. You will be permitted limited access to observe our technology, under supervision." Susan looked stunned. Jack tried not to smile. "Thank you, Ambassador," Jack said. "I promise I won't touch anything else without permission." But even as he said, "it," Jack's eyes were already wandering to the other fascinating devices around the room. The next morning, the formal meetings began. The human delegation sat on one side of a large oval table, while the Narvani representatives sat on the other. Ambassador Zelix led the discussions, explaining the history and structure of the Galactic Confederation. Our alliance includes 27 different species from across this section of the galaxy, Zelix said. We have maintained peace for over 2,000 Earth years. Jack listened with interest. He had been allowed to join the meetings, though Susan Wright had made it very clear that he was to remain silent and well-behaved. She had given him a long lecture about diplomatic incidents and the future of Earth. As the ambassador spoke, Jack noticed something interesting. All of the alien species described seemed extremely cautious and methodical in their approaches to everything from science to diplomacy. During a break, Jack approached Susan. Have you noticed that all the Confederation species evolved as prey animals or defensive creatures? None of them were predators. Susan looked surprised. You're right. That explains their careful nature. When the meetings resumed, a new Narvani entered the room. This one wore robes marked with different symbols from the others. This is Trinval, our cultural exchange officer, Ambassador Zelix explained. Today we will learn about each other's societies. Trinval showed images of various Confederation worlds and species. Each was beautiful and orderly. There were no signs of conflict or chaos anywhere. When it came time for humans to share, Susan presented information about Earth's diverse cultures and achievements. The Narvani watched with strange expressions that Jack couldn't quite read. Finally, one of them asked, Your species has had so many wars and conflicts. How do you survive such violence? Susan tried to explain humanity's complex history. The aliens seemed both fascinated and disturbed by humans. Later that day, the Narvani hosted a special dinner for cultural exchange. The room was decorated with objects from various worlds. Some looked like art, others like scientific instruments. Jack had been keeping his promise to observe only. Chief Engineer Zarkalax had given him tours of several areas of the ship, always watching carefully to make sure Jack didn't touch anything. Jack had learned more about alien technology in one day than he could have imagined. At the dinner, Jack sat next to a Narvani scientist named Velnara. They discussed different approaches to solving problems. Jack explained how humans often use trial and error. But that seems so inefficient, Velnara said. What if you make a dangerous error? Sometimes you have to take risks to make discoveries, Jack replied. As they talked, another Narvani approached with a tray of small glowing objects. These are ceremonial light stones from the world of Kaltris, the Narvani explained. They are activated by touch and represent the connection between all living beings. Each guest was invited to take one. When it was Jack's turn, he reached for a stone that was slightly different from the others. As soon as his fingers touched it, instead of glowing gently like the others, it flashed brightly and began to hum. All the Narvani in the room froze. The stone floated up from Jack's hand and expanded, forming a complex pattern of light. That is not a light stone, Ambassador Zelix said in a tight voice. That is a defensive artifact. It should not be active. The glowing object began to spin, faster, emitting a high-pitched sound. Several Narvani backed away quickly. Instead of retreating, Jack stepped closer. He studied the pattern of light for a moment, then reached out slowly. With careful movements, he touched specific points in the light pattern. The spinning slowed. What are you doing? Susan asked in alarm. It's a puzzle, Jack said calmly. The pattern is mathematical. See these sequences? Jack continued to touch points in the pattern. With each touch, the object became calmer. Finally, it settled into a gentle, pulsing glow and lowered back to the table. The room was completely silent. Then, Chief Engineer Zarkalax stepped forward. The human Miller has disarmed a Level 3 security device using only observation and intuition, Zarkalax announced. This device was designed to test the intentions of unknown species. Ambassador Zelix turned to Jack. Most beings flee when the device activates. Predator species attempt to destroy it. You are the first to simply solve it. Jack shrugged. I like puzzles. Trinval, the cultural officer, moved closer. Humans evolved as adaptable omnivores, not pure predators or prey. This gives them a unique approach to problems. The Narvani looked at the humans with new understanding, and Jack knew he had just changed how the aliens saw humanity. 3 days into the diplomatic mission, Jack was in the observation deck with Zarkalax. The chief engineer was explaining how their navigation system worked when a loud alarm began to sound throughout the ship. "What's happening?" Jack asked as the Narvani's body tensed. "Emergency signal," Zarkalax said. "We must go to the command center." When they arrived, the room was filled with Narvani moving quickly between stations. Ambassador Zelix stood in the center speaking with several officers. The human delegation huddled in one corner looking confused and worried. Susan waved Jack over. "There's a damaged Narvani science vessel that sent out a distress call," she explained quietly. "They're deciding what to do." Jack moved closer to hear what the aliens were saying. The damaged ship was orbiting a small moon in the outer solar system. It had suffered a collision with space debris that damaged its life support systems. "Oxygen levels are dropping," one of the Narvani officers reported. "They have approximately 6 hours remaining before critical failure. Prepare rescue vessel 3, Ambassador Zelix ordered. "Begin pre-launch protocols." Jack frowned. "How long will it take to reach them?" he asked. A Narvani turned to him. "The rescue vessel will be ready in 3 hours. The journey will take 2 hours. Rescue procedures will begin upon arrival." Jack did the math quickly. "That's cutting it too close," he said. "If anything goes wrong or takes longer than expected, the crew will run out of oxygen." "Our protocols are precise," the Narvani replied. "We must follow proper procedures." Jack looked around the room. On a nearby screen, he could see the smaller ships docked within the Celestial Voyager. There was a small shuttle that looked ready to go. Without saying anything to the others, Jack slipped out of the command center. He made his way quickly to the shuttle bay. Having spent time with Zarkalax, he had a basic understanding of how the alien ships operated. The shuttle bay was mostly empty. The Narvani were focused on preparing the larger rescue vessel. Jack approached the small shuttle he had seen on the screen. It was about twice the size of an Earth car, with smooth lines and a transparent front section. "Sorry, Ambassador Zelix," Jack muttered to himself. "I know you said not to touch anything." He pressed his hand against the shuttle's door panel. To his surprise, it opened immediately. Jack climbed inside and found the control panel. It was similar to ones Zarkalax had shown him. Jack pressed a sequence of symbols and the shuttle hummed to life. Just as he was figuring out the navigation system, the shuttle bay door opened. Zarkalax rushed in, followed by 2 security officers. "Human Miller, what are you doing?" the engineer called out. "There's no time for protocols," Jack shouted back. "I can reach that science vessel in less than an hour in this shuttle. Send the rescue ship behind me." Before the Narvani could stop him, Jack activated the launch sequence. The shuttle lifted off the deck and shot out of the bay into space. Using the shuttle's communication system, Jack called back to the Celestial Voyager. "Can someone send me the exact coordinates of the damaged vessel?" After a moment of silence, Zarkalax's voice came through. "This is against all protocols, but I am sending the coordinates now." Jack piloted the shuttle through space faster than he had ever moved before. The Earth looked like a blue marble in the distance as he headed toward the outer solar system. When he reached the damaged science vessel, he could see the problem immediately. A large piece of space rock had smashed into one section, creating a breach. The Narvani inside had sealed off that section, but their air systems were failing. Jack docked his shuttle with the damaged vessel. When he opened the door, 3 Narvani scientists stared at him in shock. "Hi there," Jack said with a small wave. "I'm from Earth. I'm here to help." The Narvani were hesitant at first, clearly terrified by Jack's unplanned arrival and his species. But as the air grew thinner, they had no choice but to accept his help. Jack examined their life support system. "I think I can fix this," he said. "But I'll need to take it apart first." The lead scientist looked horrified. "That is not the proper repair procedure." Jack was already opening panels and rearranging components. Sometimes you have to improvise, he said as he worked. Trust me. 2 days after the rescue, Jack stood before the Confederation Council. The large circular room was filled with Narvani and representatives from 3 other alien species. Jack had never seen these other aliens before. One species had tentacles instead of arms. Another seemed to be made mostly of transparent gel. The third looked almost like tall, thin humans, but with skin that changed colors as they moved. Ambassador Zelix stood to one side. Susan Wright stood next to Jack, looking both worried and proud. "Human Jack Miller," said the lead council member. "You have violated numerous protocols during your time with us. You explored restricted areas without permission. You touched ship systems without authorization. You took a shuttle without clearance. Your actions show a pattern of disregard for our rules." Jack nodded. He knew he was in trouble, but he didn't regret what he had done. The science vessel crew had survived because of his quick action. By the time the official rescue ship arrived, Jack had already fixed the life support system and was working on the ship's engines. "In your defense," the council member continued, "your actions did save the lives of 3 valued scientists. And Chief Engineer Zarkalax reports that your improvised repairs were highly effective, if unorthodox." Susan stepped forward. "Council, members, if I may speak. Jack's actions represent something important about humans that you should understand. We evolved as adaptable problem solvers. We take calculated risks when necessary. This is not recklessness, but a different approach to survival." Zarkalax moved to the center of the room. The engineer had become something of a friend to Jack over the past few days. "I have analyzed Human Miller's actions," Zarkalax said. "While they violated our standard procedures, they actually had a higher probability of success in this specific emergency situation. His approach was efficient." The council members talked among themselves quietly. Then the lead member spoke again. "Human Miller, we have a deeper concern about your species. Your behavior reminds us of another species that once existed in our galaxy. They were aggressive, unpredictable, and refused to follow established rules. They caused great suffering before they disappeared." Jack was surprised. "What happened to them?" "They destroyed themselves through their own reckless technology," the council member said. "We fear humans may follow the same path." The room fell silent. Jack realized this wasn't just about his own rule-breaking. The future relationship between Earth and the Confederation was at stake. "We face a difficult decision," the council member continued. "We can offer Earth membership in the Confederation, but only if humans accept restrictions on their exploration and technology development. Or we may need to classify Earth as a potential threat, limiting all contact." Jack looked at Susan, who seemed shocked by these options. Neither choice seemed right for humanity. "With respect," Jack said, "I'd like to suggest a third option." The council members looked surprised. They weren't used to having their choices questioned. "Instead of restricting us or avoiding us, why not let us show you what humans can offer? The Confederation? Our different approach to problems might be exactly what you need sometimes." "What are you proposing?" asked the council member. "Give us a challenge," Jack said. "Something your best minds haven't been able to solve. Let us try it our way. If we succeed, consider a partnership where we learn from each other, rather than one side restricting the other." The council members discussed among themselves again. The tentacled alien seemed especially interested in Jack's idea. Finally, the lead member spoke. "Your proposal is unusual, but it has merit. We will present you with 3 challenges that have resisted our efforts for many cycles. If humans can solve them, we will reconsider our approach to your species." Jack grinned. "We'll need a small team. I know just the people to call." Susan looked at him with a mix of hope and worry. "Jack, what have you gotten us into?" "The chance to show what humans can really do," he replied. As they left the council chamber, Jack was already planning which systems he would need to touch next. 3 days later, Jack stood in a large room aboard the Celestial Voyager with his newly formed team. After explaining the situation to Earth's leaders, He had been allowed to select 2 specialists to help with the Confederation challenges. Next to him stood Paul Garcia, a brilliant engineer who specialized in unusual energy systems. On his other side was Kelly Adams, one of the best xenobiologists on Earth. Both had been flown up to the alien ship within hours of being contacted. "So let me get this straight," Paul said. "The future relationship between Earth and an entire galactic civilization depends on us solving 3 problems that stumped the aliens for centuries?" "Pretty much," Jack replied with a grin. Kelly shook her head. "No pressure or anything. Ambassador." Salix entered the room, followed by Zarkalax and several other aliens Jack hadn't met before. "Humans," Zalix said. "These are the challenge masters. They will present the 3 tasks you must complete." The first challenge master stepped forward. This alien had pale green skin and 6 fingers on each hand. "The first challenge involves this," the alien said, gesturing to a table where a strange object sat. The object was about the size of a basketball, but shaped like a star with 12 points. It appeared to be made of a dull metal with intricate designs etched into its surface. Parts of it seemed broken or damaged. "This is an artifact from a long-extinct civilization," the challenge master explained. "We believe it contains valuable knowledge, but we have been unable to repair or activate it for over 300 years. Jack approached the artifact carefully. "Can I touch it?" "For these challenges, yes," Ambassador Zelix said. "But be careful." Jack picked up the object. It was lighter than it looked. He turned it over in his hands, studying the patterns. "Paul, come look at this," he said. "These grooves here, they look like they conduct energy." Paul examined the artifact. "You're right. And see these broken sections? They've disrupted the flow pattern." For the next several hours, the human team carefully studied the artifact. Kelly noticed biological components that seemed designed to respond to touch. Paul identified an unusual energy signature. Jack found a way to temporarily power sections of the device using tools borrowed from Zarkalax. The Narvani watched in amazement as the humans took the artifact apart, spread pieces across the floor, and discussed theories openly. Their approach was nothing like the careful step-by-step methods the aliens used. "This isn't going to work," Jack said after a particularly failed attempt to activate one section. "We're missing something." "Maybe we're overthinking it," Kelly suggested. "The biological components respond to touch, right? What if it's designed to work with multiple people at once?" They repositioned the artifact and had all 3 humans touch different sections simultaneously. Nothing happened. "Wait," Paul said suddenly. "What if it needs different species to touch it?" Jack looked up at Zarkalax. "Would you be willing to help us?" The alien engineer hesitated, then nodded. Jack positioned Zarkalax's 4-fingered hand on one section of the artifact while the 3 humans touched other parts. Suddenly, the object hummed to life. The dull metal began to glow, and the broken sections seemed to heal themselves. The star points extended, and the artifact floated up from the table. A holographic display appeared above the artifact, showing star systems and what looked like travel routes. "It's a map," Kelly exclaimed. "A map of ancient space routes." The challenge master stepped forward, eyes wide. "We never considered that it might require multiple species to activate it. The creators must have designed it to be used by a diverse group." Jack smiled. "Sometimes the problem isn't in the technology, but in how we approach it." "The first challenge is completed," Ambassador Zelix announced. "Most impressive, but the second will be far more difficult." "What is it?" Jack asked. "You must navigate through a dangerous stellar phenomenon to retrieve critical data from a probe that was lost 20 years ago. No ship has successfully entered and exited this phenomenon." Paul and Kelly looked at Jack with concern. This wasn't just about touching things anymore. This could be genuinely dangerous. "When do we start?" Jack asked, his eyes already bright with excitement at the new challenge. After successfully navigating the dangerous stellar phenomenon and completing the second challenge, Jack and his team were given 1 day to rest. The journey had been dangerous, with the shuttle nearly destroyed by energy waves, but Jack's quick thinking and Paul's engineering skills had gotten them through. Now they gathered in a room they hadn't seen before. This chamber was darker than the rest of the ship, with walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The final challenge is the most difficult, Ambassador Zelix said. For centuries, we have tried to communicate with a silicon-based life form discovered on a small moon in the Altaris system. Despite our best efforts, we have failed to establish meaningful contact. A large screen on the wall activated, showing what looked like a field of crystals. The crystals pulsed with internal light, moving slowly across a rocky landscape. These are the crystalline entities, the Challenge Master explained. They do not communicate through sound or light as we understand it. Their thought processes are completely alien to us. Kelly leaned forward, fascinated. Silicon-based life. I've theorized about this, but we've never found examples in our solar system. Ambassador Zelix nodded. We have arranged transport to the moon where they live. You will have 48 hours to attempt communication. If you succeed where we have failed, all 3 challenges will be complete. The journey to the Altaris system took several days in a faster Confederation ship. During that time, the human team studied all the information available about the crystal entities. Kelly developed theories about how silicon-based life might perceive the world, while Paul designed devices that might help them interact with the creatures. When they arrived, the moon was smaller than Earth's moon but had a thin atmosphere. The landscape was mostly rock and dust, with large fields of the crystal entities scattered across the surface. The human team put on special suits designed by the Narvani for the environment and stepped onto the surface. The crystal field nearest to them glowed softly as they approached. They seem to be reacting to our presence, Kelly said, but I don't see any pattern to the light pulses that would suggest language. For hours, they tried different approaches. They used light, sound, and even carefully placed vibrations in the ground. Nothing worked. The crystals reacted, but there was no sign of communication. Jack sat on a rock, frustrated. We're missing something fundamental here. He stared at the crystals, thinking hard. Then he noticed something. When he shifted his position, the crystals closest to him moved slightly. He stood up suddenly. Guys, I think they might communicate through physical contact or proximity. Kelly looked alarmed. Jack, you can't just touch an alien life form. We have no idea what might happen. But Jack was already moving toward the crystal field. He knelt down and slowly, carefully, extended his hand. The nearest crystal entity moved toward him, extending a thin crystal spike. Jack, Paul called out, in warning. The crystal touched Jack's gloved hand. Immediately, a strange sensation flowed up his arm. It wasn't painful, but it felt like tiny electric currents were racing through his body. In his mind, he suddenly saw images. Not visual images exactly, but impressions of places and concepts. I think it's working, Jack said quietly. They communicate through direct electrical contact. Our nervous systems can interpret the signals. He remained connected to the crystal for several minutes, his face showing surprise, confusion, and finally understanding. When he pulled his hand away, he looked at his teammates with wide eyes. They've been trying to talk to us all along, but they experience time much slower than we do. What seems like random flashes to us is actually a conversation that takes place over days or weeks for them. Kelly approached cautiously and, following Jack's example, made contact with another crystal. Her face showed the same sequence of emotions Jack's had. When the Challenge Masters and Ambassador Zelix learned what the humans had discovered, they were astonished. No Confederation species had ever attempted direct contact with the crystal, entities assuming it would be dangerous. The challenges are complete, the lead Challenge Master announced formally. All 3 tasks have been accomplished in ways we never considered. Ambassador Zelix looked at Jack with new respect. You were correct, Human Miller. Your species does indeed offer perspectives we lack. Jack smiled, but something was bothering him. Ambassador, these challenges seem designed to test more than just problem-solving. They tested ethics too, how we interact with ancient technology, how we handle danger, how we approach unknown life. Why? The ambassador was silent for a moment. You are perceptive. There is something important we must discuss when we return to your planet, the true reason for our visit to Earth. Back on Earth, a special meeting was arranged in a secure conference room at NASA headquarters. Jack, Paul, and Kelly sat on one side of the table. Ambassador Zelix, Zarkalax, and several high-ranking human officials sat on the other. Now that you have proven yourselves, Ambassador Zelix began, we must share the full truth about our mission to Earth. The ambassador activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Certain areas were highlighted in different colors. The galaxy is not as peaceful as we led you to believe, Zelix said. It is divided between two major powers. The Confederation, which values caution and stability, controls this region. The ambassador pointed to a blue section, and the Dominion, a coalition of aggressive predator species, controls this area. Zelix pointed to a red section. Earth sits here, Zarkalax added, indicating a point near the border between the two regions, in a location of great strategic importance. Jack leaned forward. You've been watching us, haven't you? Long before you made contact. Ambassador Zelix nodded. For centuries we have monitored Earth's development. Your rapid technological advancement concerned us. But that's not all, Jack said, suddenly understanding. The Dominion has been watching us too. Yes, the ambassador confirmed. The Dominion has already contacted several Earth governments in secret, offering advanced weapons technology in exchange for alliance. The human officials looked at each other in alarm. This was news to them. So the challenges weren't just tests, Kelly said. You were evaluating whether humans could be trusted with advanced technology. Precisely, said Zarkalax. We needed to understand how humans approach problems. Would you use knowledge responsibly or recklessly? Jack thought about each challenge. The first tested how they handled ancient technology. The second tested how they faced danger. The third tested how they approached alien life. Each revealed something about human nature. And what did you conclude? Paul asked. Ambassador Zelix looked directly at Jack. Your tendency to touch what you shouldn't, to break protocols, worried us. But we also saw wisdom in your approach. You showed respect for the artifact's creators. You risked yourselves rather than abandon the trapped probe. And most importantly, you approached the crystal entities with peaceful intentions. So what happens now? Jack asked. We offer Earth formal membership in the Confederation, the ambassador said, with careful technology exchange and cultural integration. One of the human officials spoke up. And if we refuse? That would be unwise, Zarkalax said quietly. The Dominion does not offer partnership. They offer submission or destruction. After much discussion, agreements were signed. The first stages of Earth's relationship with the Confederation would be careful and closely monitored. Jack was appointed as the first human liaison to the Confederation's Science Directorate. Susan Wright became the diplomatic ambassador. 6 months later, Jack stood in a newly built facility near Cape Canaveral. Engineers from Earth and the Confederation worked side by side, developing hybrid technologies that combined human innovation with alien precision. Zarkalax approached Jack holding a small device. This is for you, the alien said. We designed it specifically for human hands. Jack took the tool, turning it over carefully. It was like nothing he had seen before, but it fit perfectly in his grip. Attached was a small note that read, "Please, touch this." Jack laughed. You're learning our sense of humor. We are learning many things from each other, Zarkalax replied. The next day, Jack and a mixed team of human and alien scientists boarded a Confederation vessel. They were headed for Earth's first official mission to the galactic core to study a rare stellar phenomenon. As the ship prepared for departure, Jack sat in the co-pilot's seat. An interesting button on the control panel caught his eye. It was blinking with a soft blue light. No one had told him what it did. Jack, Susan warned from behind him, recognizing the look on his face. Don't even think about it. Jack smiled innocently, but as soon as the ship cleared Earth's atmosphere, his finger accidentally pressed the button. The vessel suddenly accelerated much faster than expected, pushing them back in their seats. The alien crew members groaned in unison. But there was a hint of amusement in their expressions. "Sorry," Jack said, not looking sorry at all. "Humans are just naturally curious." A report was sent that evening to the Confederation Council. Humans remain unpredictable and occasionally reckless, but they may be exactly what the galaxy needs to face the challenges ahead. Recommend continued partnership with reasonable safety protocols in place. The report was approved with one additional note. NK